Or you were just speaking from your heart about the.
I was, but I mean, I wanted to make sure that I got that in. And when I was vacillating between just switching to the piece I submitted for application, I was like, well, that's where it all started, right? So that's why this is so painful. But it was because I was oblivious to racism, really, you know what I mean? And then, but I'm educated, right? So I knew historically that it happened, but I was like, what's wrong? Like, and so, and then it just kept going and going and going. And then by the end of it, like I literally walked off stage and I told my parents to keep the car running. That's how much I needed to just get away from that. I was just like, so I literally walked off, and the president, because there was a ghetto party, which I haven't written about yet, and I am going to, but if you're interested in this part of the story, so all the girls on my floor came to my room asking me to help them get dressed. And I was best dressed in high school. And so I thought, oh my gosh, sure, I'll help you. Even though I was not best dressed in college because I had an 8 o'clock class that I woke up late for every day. So I literally was t-shirt and sweatpants, right? So I'm like, I don't know how you saw my fashion, but glad you're here. So after getting about 12 girls dressed, I said, I want to go, right? So I'm now and I was in a girlfriend's room. I was like, let's go. So we put on some clothes, went over to Sigma Chi, and it was a ghetto party. That in the basement, they had kind of newspaper at the walls, had Jesse Jackson go back to Africa. No, Jesse Jackson sex cock, niggers go back to Africa. Just all, spray painted, blackface, Afro wigs. And my girlfriend was Black, but she mostly dated white men. And I hadn't really seriously. And so she was like, you're missing out on a whole half of the world. You should try. And I was just like, So one of them had approached me and I thought about it. And so and he was a Sigma Chi, and as he was coming down the stairs, and he listened to like R&B, right? So we had a lot in common. And so he's coming downstairs, they go, hey, nigger. And he looks at them and then looks at me. And I was like, they call you that? Why? And it's because he, listened to Black music. So he was the DJ. And then his parents were coming the next weekend, and they're like, he's like, listen, can I tell my parents that you're mixed? And I'm like, and I'm not. I'm like, but why? Even if, like, I said, so that makes me half okay then? You know what I mean? If I were. And then what do we say when they meet my parent? And so, but it was constant. And so for that, my dad said, you need to react in any way that's special to you. And so communications was my thing. And so I wrote a press release, not knowing that the USA Today would come to a press conference, the Indianapolis paper. And so a few national organizations. And
wow.
And then I didn't realize that my response, because almost the other 11 Black kids responded with a candlelight vigil, sensitivity training, but mine was the only response that was outside of the university, which even then I didn't know. I was like, this is just what I'm going to do. And so the administration was after me for the entire 4 years. And so when I graduated, the president shook my hand and he said, you did it. Like, because we tried to get you out, based on that. So with the kids and then the administration, and then me really not even knowing that there was a faction trying to get rid of me. It was just hell after hell that I seemed to always be in. So when I walked off that stage, I got in the car, I like never want to see that place again. Then it seemed the world was still talking about it. And so maybe I'm just hyper aware. And so I was reading a newspaper that said Americans shouldn't be hyphenated, that it was something about Mexican Americans, Latino, Asian Americans, and it was a piece that was written. And after that piece, I was like, I gotta go. And I left a month later and went to Japan. And I had $70. Like,
why Japan, can I ask?
silly. So before I decided to leave, I was going to get a dog, and I was interviewing would-be veterinarians for the dog I didn't have yet. Why I thought I needed to interview doctors. So I had an interview with a doctor, and I said, yes, I'm going to get a dog. And I'm looking for the doctor who's going to help me take care of the dog. And so he was just like, oh my God. So we start talking about other things. And then at the end of my interview, he goes, he was Japanese. And he goes, my country needs to see you. And I said, it does? And he goes, it does, seriously. And because I was ready to go, great, I'll go.
Oh my gosh.
That is literally.
That is wild.
He put me in touch with his sister who was still there. So I had at least one contact. But I didn't have I got there and realized it was so unplanned. I didn't have a place to stay. I'm at the airport, just now wondering like how this is going to work. And so then I look in their phone book. This is 95.
I was going to ask what year it was.
Yeah, 95. So I'm looking in the phone book and I see a Black tax attorney there.
Okay.
And because he was Black, I called him. I was like, hey, I'm from America and I just arrived. Don't quite know what to do. You know, have any thoughts? And he was like, excuse me.
This is weird. Like, who is this woman calling me?
Right. So I repeated it. And he said, I'll be right there.
Oh my gosh.
And he came and he knew I didn't have a place to stay. And he took me to a Japanese family who was interested in having an American live with them so they can learn English.
Wow. Your parents must have been really worried about you, but excited for you.
So my mom is a worrier.
Yeah.
As you can know, this is my personality. So it wasn't a surprise, but they're just like, my mother's like, you are. And there was a war in Korea at the time. She's like, it's a Korean war. I said, Mom, I'm in Japan. So that's really not doing, but okay. But my dad was like, she'll do it. She'll figure it out. But the gift was, they are so different than we are in mind and values and, just about everything. And that's when I became American, because not just from my skin color, but everyone American understood what I was saying. I'm a salesperson, so especially before I got into nonprofit. And, maybe is what they say. We say yes or no, right? Mm-hmm. And so maybe for an American, it's just like, I just have to give you more information to say yes. That really means no, and I just don't want to tell you to your face. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I lived with a family, but I couldn't get a job. And they were like, why would we hire you? I gave the American answer about how, these are my 3, strengths and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, no, you're not. There's no way we would hire you if a Japanese can do it.
Right.
I was like, oh, so I thought, that's nationalism, which is different than racism. Right. And I was just like, okay, well, that makes sense. And so then she said, I was like, oh, well, this interview didn't go well. And she was like, well, no, it's fine. You're fine. It's just, the Japanese can do something that we can't do. And I said, well, what is that? And she said, you have a native tongue of English. I was like, ah. So then I started, figured out, to teach English, but that took a while. And so I was going to leave. And I decided, I don't know when I'll be back on this side of the world. So let me see some parts of it. So there was a Japanese, you've been to Japan?
No, I would love to go there someday though.
So there's a Japanese park in Shinjuku called for Japanese Elvises, and they're literally dressed up in Elvis uniforms.
Oh my gosh.
Like 30 of them at a time, right? And so I knew I need to go there. So I'm there. And I don't see any Black people ever. And the place I live, I don't see anybody. So, but a Black guy appears at this park and is standing, and he comes to me and he goes, this is some shit, huh? And I was like, it is. And so then he was like, you want a hot dog? And I was like, okay. So he went to the hot dog booth, and then these 2 white guys who looked American, right? But it was hard to tell because it was UK, England, African mostly, right? But I was like, they look American. So they came over to me and then they started talking. And so I was like, where are you guys from? They're like, Minnesota. I was like, oh my God, I'm from Ohio. And they're like, is that your friend? I was like, who, that guy? And I said, no, I don't even know him. They're like, you don't know who he is? I was like, no, do you? They were like, yes. I was like, who is it? It's like, that's Wesley Snipes. I was like,
No way. Oh my God.
but he was short. Like
That is hilarious.
he was my height, it seemed. And why am I seeing Wesley Snipes in Japan? Right. So
So
it
you
just,
had a hot dog with Wesley Snipes.
I did. So he brought me over the hot dog. And then I acted like I knew who he was the whole time. And so I was just like, Wesley, this is, Dan and John.
Oh
Wesley
my
Snipes, I'm
God.
Kenadie. And so we all just kind of start talking. And then when that ended, and he was there filming
Mm,
what was that? The Sun, Rising Sun.
mm.
So I was just like, so they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm about to go back to America. I've been here a month, but um I need a job, and so I need to move from where I was because that was temporary. And they're like, well, live with us.
Oh my
Where you
gosh.
guys live? They're like, we're over here, and we can probably get your job at the school we're in, probably part-time.
Mm.
But and we can't tell them that you're living with us because they're real funny about male and female. He was like, live with us. And if you know my personality by now, I was like, okay.
Okay. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. So were you with them for a couple months and you found your own place, or you?
I did. So I was with them for about 3 months, actually. And then I got a job that really took care of their female teachers only
Mm.
and gave me a house, a car, and a job all together.
Wow. Well, so I have to go back. Like, did you ever get the dog?
No. When I returned, I did,
Yeah.
but I moved to LA at that point. And so
Wow. What a story, Kennedy.
it was
Amazing.
crazy. It was crazy, but because I was so different, and I want to say this to you, over there, that I had to get used to just being me,
Mm-hmm.
and not attached to a race, anything, you know what I mean? And my boss told me I was an honorary Japanese woman, and so the culture really accepted who I was. Um, they had a problem with white people, based on their history.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'd go out with the other teachers, and they would only let me in. I wouldn't stay because I can't, I don't, because they didn't do anything, right? But my teachers were like, that's what racism feels like. I've never been told I can't come in someplace. And so we had really great conversations about what it does feel like. And then when I came back, I was so, I don't know, just so comfortable in my skin and who I was, and that it was just a pure gift. And so I continued to, like, so I was a teacher. So I love teaching since I was there. So I came back and did more. And most of the time in LA, even then, I was the first Black teacher, this school would have. Um, and I remember sitting on the stage, and I was just stared at. And again, I thought it was my clothes. Like, all the parents are staring at me. I was like, this outfit, this must be so cute. And then when I got off stage, they were like, oh my God, we've never had a Black teacher. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, that again. But at least it wasn't hateful. But it just seems to always be there. And until I went to the Smithsonian Museum and saw history for 400 years all in one day,
Mm.
I got it. I was like, oh, okay, it's not me.
Yeah, it's your story. I feel such gratitude for you for how did you hear about the This Is My Brave Stories from the Black Community show then?
Um, there was a advertisement with the Links Incorporated email.
Hmm.
So it was so I'm a member of that group, and it went out in a national email, and my
Mm.
mom saw it.
Okay.
And she said, you should check this out. This looks like something you'd like to do. And I did, and I sent it, and here I am. But
Yeah.
that's where she saw it, and I saw it too.
I mean, I've wanted to do this for a long time, this show, but until I got connected with Kaya and Tanisha, it I couldn't ever, they needed to lead and I was there to listen and to learn. And that's what This Is My Brave is just, we need to elevate stories from all different communities, and the timing just this year, the tragic events of losing George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Elijah McClain. I mean, it's just, it needs to stop, and we need to come together and learn from each other and listen and love and not hate. And that's what you guys are doing with your stories. And I'm just so proud to have been able to work with you and get to know you and hear your story. And I feel like it's going to keep going.